We have a lot of this invasive gout weed on our property. I think we first saw it maybe about 15 years ago. We think it started when some fill used by the town on the road upstream of here was contaminated by this, and then that kind of over some amount of time came down. And while it's not terrible, it's not like poisonous to us or it doesn't have any real ill effects. It's not grass. It's not as nice to look at. It doesn't have the benefits that grass has, and it doesn't have as strong of roots as grass, so that it's not holding on to the soil along the stream super well as grass would. And it's an invasive that we don't like because we don't get as much benefit of it from grass. And it's really hard to treat, especially because it covers several acres of our land. Luckily, at least the ferns can deal with it. We have had some success doing like pulling small amounts of it around like some very, very small areas that we want to keep free of it, and keeping it out of the garden. That's not been too difficult, but the total area we've managed to keep this up by pulling is less than 100 square feet. So we've got a lot more of it around. So I'm hoping that I can come up with some way that we can return this to more grass dominance than the gout weed dominance. This is the area I've chosen because there's some grass mixed in with the gout weed, so I think it might be possible to return it to where this grass is dominant. And what I'm going to use as an attempt to do this is that, from my understanding, where grass really outcompetes other species is when there's like low frequent grazing is how it evolved through herds of animals grazing, but that can be simulated by mowing. So I have, well, 3 plots here. The first one I'm going to use our electric weed whacker to get it down really low, and I'll repeat this weekly. The next plot of grass I'm going to scythe. This is something that I think will be less effective because we do scythe some of the areas that look similar to this and nothing seems to be happening to promote grass growth. But I thought I should try it anyways because it's more likely we're going to be able to treat a large area with scything than with the weed whacker. I'll probably scythe this 1 to 2 times a month. The last one I'll leave as an undisturbed control to see what would happen if we do nothing. Hopefully it stays similar to this. I think it's been this way for many years, but what I'm really hoping is that the gout weed doesn't take over more so. The grass can still survive. It's mid-September as the growing season is drawing to a close. And these plots where I was doing the gout weed, or bishop weed is another name for it, I cut both of the weed whacker and the scythe plot a week ago to give kind of a fairly even look at what's 1 week of regrowth. That's not, however, how I was taking the photos during the summer, where I would take the photos right before cutting both of them, which it's a different time to look at it, but it is what it is. During that summer, kind of just with what my schedule was, typically I would scythe about once every 3 weeks, and then weed whack at one point in between them. So the weed whacker kind of on average is almost always on weekends when I do anything, but the weed whacker would occur on average once every week and a half, and the scything about once every 3 weeks. what I think I'm seeing is that the less frequent scything is kind of producing more grass growth than the more frequent weed whacking. That's what I've seen through the summer, and it's somewhat visible here. The grass seems to be kind of more dominant compared to the gout weed than on the weed whacker. It almost feels like the very low weed whacker, just how it works, is just kind of stunting all the growth. Not so much that the gout weed is any worse in that plot, but just that the grass is better in this plot. And part of the issue is that I'm experimenting on two variables at once, so I can't draw entirely clear conclusions. Here, the scything action, which is can cut as low as the weed whacker, but doesn't do it consistently, and it's also a cutting motion, as opposed to the very low and the kind of shredding motion of the weed whacker, but it's also less frequent. So I don't know if it's the less frequency, the scything, or both that is causing this to look better. Going into next year, I'll design an experiment that better separates these to have clear results leading forward of which one works better for this gout weed control. So the real question is what I'm doing really worth it? Like, invasive control is good, but is a short lawn of the existing grasses better? Like, its lawns aren't really that good environmentally compared to kind of wild growth spaces. There's a number of issues with them. So is it really better to try to control invasives by cutting them down to like a short, like standard lawn, which is what I'm functionally doing here? Or would it be better to just leave what's in the control plot or all around me? Like, for example, there's an area actually right by where the camera is that there's a bunch of goldenrod, and there's no gout weed growing in that. That's a native vegetation that is able to suppress the gout weed there. So should I be trying to promote goldenrod through here and other kind of that slightly woody annual growth plant stems? Or should I just, or is it even just the mix of the gout weed and the grass better? Like, if I am seeing that the gout weed is taking over from the grass, maybe it's better to eliminate that. But then again, I'm not really sure what is the better option. Is it this kind of mixed wild is probably the more environmentally sound option, because it's not like I'm going to, or it maybe is, but I highly doubt that I'm going to be able to get gout weed control, certainly not on this small plots, but even if I did this whole area to a point where like I completely eliminated the gout weed so I can just let the grass grow back without it creeping back in, that would be a massive endeavor, and even then require constant maintenance. Like, maybe you could do an area and build a border around it, the gout weed can't come in, but is it the better option just to leave it like this? But anyways, I'll continue the experiment.